Welcome to the Dr. Broadway Podcast, the musical theater history podcast where a couple of doctors sit around and talk about Broadway. I am your co-host, Dr. Kristin Stultz Pressley, joined as I always am by my co-host, whom I haven't seen all summer long, Dr. Tracey Brent-Chessum. Tracey, it's so good to see you. How are you?
It's good to see you too. We both jumped on this call to start the podcast, and we finally were like, we need to stop talking and get to this podcast. We can continue this discussion in there. So, we really were kind of excited to see each other. It's been it's been a nice break, and we've had some major things happen in our lives.
Major things.
It's good to be back at it. So
yeah.
Today
So Tracey,
we start season 2 of the Dr. Broadway podcast, and we are off and running.
It's shocking to me. I mean, one of the first things I said to Tracey when we logged back on was, I am so proud of us for coming back for season 2. I am so proud of us for not saying, you know what, I'm just too busy. I've got too many irons in the fire. There are too many plates spinning in the air at the moment. I am so proud of us for saying, no, this is important to us. We're doing good work that we believe in and are excited about, and we're going to come back for more. And I'm really proud of us for being here. So Tracey, why don't you talk us through what the shape of season 2 is going to be? Season 1 was so nice and tidy. We talked about the Tonys on tour. We can't do that again, right? It's been done. So what are we doing in season 2?
So when we mapped it out, what we thought we would do is kind of look at things. Well, we didn't have enough of one topic for like the whole semester because the academics in us only work on semesters.
That's right. That's how we work.
But Kristin came up with the idea of the micromester, and I just think that's hilarious, first and foremost. I don't know where you've come up with that term, because I don't think I've ever heard it.
Have you not?
No.
You've heard of mini-mesters, right?
Mini-mesters, yes.
So it's just the slightly smaller version of a mini-mester is the micromester.
All right. So we're doing 4 of these little micromesters. One we're calling Turn Up the Jukebox, which is all jukebox musicals that are on tour. And then we have some musicals based on books that I think it's called Bookish at the moment. Hooray for Hollywood, all the musicals that were first films. And then we have like an all original section that, shows that didn't exist in another form. But we should have this whole next series completed by the end of the year, and then we'll be able to discuss season 3 after it. But right now, we're right here in season 2. Did you just hiccup right there?
No, but I know. Can you believe it?
I know.
Man, they come fast and furious. What I was going to say is, first of all, just a point of information, my computer is completely frozen up. So I want to be sure that you are still hearing me and all is well in terms of recording.
I can still hear you.
Okay,
that part of it is
perfect.
going just fine. You are, our YouTube friends will laugh a little bit because every once in a while you just jerk forward.
Yes, like Max Headroom.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting. So the computer seems to be doing the audio okay. It's just the video that it's not very happy about.
Perfect. I did not want to have that big surprise come through after we'd recorded. Okay, so yes. Tracey had this great idea last season that we would formulate season 2 so that our episode on Wicked coincided with the release of the second Wicked film.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a brilliant idea. That comes out November 21st. So as I was kind of mapping out and just, playing around with dates, I thought if we start this date and we do this Jukebox musicals first, and then we do Bookish, where would things fall? And without even trying, Wicked fell on November 19th, which is the week of that film's release. And I told Tracey, the hair on my arms stood up when that worked out. It was pure kismet. I was so excited. So at any rate, we're looking ahead to that. And I think it's going to be a great mini-mester, micromester, full semester, whatever you want to call it. And then we'll conclude right at the very end of the year with the final show, which I believe is six, right? We have the
Yep.
all originals, which are shucked, and six coming at the talk about a micromester
Yeah.
coming at the very, very end. Now, last semester, if you were tuning in, you remember we had the Tonys on tour, but I, for one, cannot come up with a catchy title for the hodgepodge that is the, motley crew of shows that we're going to be talking about for this semester. So if anyone can come up with a clever title, please email us at hello@drbroadway.com. And if we end up using yours, I will send you a copy of my new book, which is Jukebox Musicals, due out September 18th. So, in honor of Turn Up the Jukebox, I figured Jukebox Musicals would be a great one to give away here. So,
No, we're
but before
excited
we
about
get in,
your book.
I am excited about my book. I actually have two coming out. One is the Pulitzer Prize winners. One is Jukebox Musicals. They both come out on the same day, and they come out September 18th. They're available now for pre-order, but I'll talk about them more maybe in episode 2 or 3 as we're a little bit closer to the release date. Because today, the more pressing issue is what you've been up to this summer. So why don't you tell us how you spent your summer, Tracey?
I spent it moving. This has been a very, very a summer of upheaval. So we ended the podcast. Oh, we stopped recording in about April, right?
Maybe April 28th or 30th or something like that.
Yeah.
Sounds
and
right.
then we were like, okay, we're gonna take the summer off. Well, around April 28th or so, my wife's job got Doge caught up with my wife's job. And so she got cut back quite a bit. And we were both like, okay, well, this is an opportunity. What are we going to do now? And around the same time, I had a former colleague call me and say, hey, we just lost our theater history professor. Would you come down and help us out for a year so that we can do a search? And under normal circumstances, I would not, sell my house and leave and do that kind of thing. But, it's like looking at the fact that we didn't really have a full-time job anymore. And this kind of fell in our lap. So we were being very well taken care of. And it happened to be in Orlando, Florida. The University of Central Florida, which is where I'm working now, obviously in Orlando. And it just so happens that my entire family lives here. So we moved down here on July 1st. So we sold the house, packed up the house, moved on down here. And it's actually, it's been a blessing in disguise, because for those of you who have little ones, we were up in North Georgia without much support as far as family is concerned. And it's a lot when you don't have anybody around that can help when something goes terribly wrong.
Absolutely, it is.
And so, I have my parents and my two sisters and their whole family. And it's been really kind of fun to not only have them be able to jump in and take care of kiddos before school starts, when I've had to do prep work, but it's also been really fun to be able to do that for them too. I've gone and grabbed, my nieces, and we've gone to Disney because mom had to this, this meeting and that meeting, and we've had a bit of a summer. But the girls did very, very well with the move. We were, they're 2.5, and so we were a little worried, I think, that they were going to be like, but this isn't my house. Oh no, they love the new place. They're having a great time. Good. They love being with their cousins, and they're having a blast in Florida.
Good.
We're learning about things like hurricanes and the fact that it pours every day at random times, and we're having a good run of it. And the University of Central Florida has been wonderful. I'm just kind of fitting in a gap here for a year, and so far the students have been wonderful, and hopefully this is a seamless kind of stepping stones to them finding somebody that they want to put on a tenure track. So this is fun. So today I'm at home recording this, but from here on out I'm gonna be at the University of Central Florida recording these in my office. So there'll be a sign on my door that says, you know, don't knock on my door. I'm podcasting, y'all. Like, and, so that's on my schedule, all outside my door, outside my office door, and you know, we're gonna have a good semester. So
Yes. So tell us what you're teaching.
I'm teaching Theater History 1, Theater History 2, and Theater History 3, and they have about 60 people in each class, and
Man.
I am like dying.
Yeah.
That's a lot of students, y'all.
Of grading, a lot of grading. So, but UCF has such a great program. I mean, it's really well known and really well respected. And so that's awesome that you're able to be there. How many majors do they have?
You mean in the university or just in the...
No. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I mean,
I was
how
like,
many
in the
theater majors? I'm sorry. I should have phrased that more clearly. How many theater majors? Do you know offhand?
Not offhand. It's over 300. I know that.
Oh my gosh.
And they also have a thriving graduate program. So, I mean, I've been blessed with the fact that I've got grad student TAs who are incredibly helpful.
Oh, that's awesome.
They at least knew enough to give me like third year graduate TAs. So if I have no idea what's going on, they at least do. So
yeah.
So it's fun. But you've had really important, interesting things happen in your life as well. You guys bought a business.
Well, let me tell you, this is the craziest story ever. I mean, honestly, ever. I don't know how to describe it any other way. So I have two boys who are 11 and 12, and one would want me to say almost 13 because he'll be 13 in October. He's very excited to be a teenager. But about 2 years ago, I was talking to my cousin's cousin, who is not my cousin, which I know is complicated, but she's a cousin from the other side of the family. And I was talking to her on the 4th of July, and she was telling me about how she and her husband had started this vending machine business. And I was like, that is so interesting. And I thought, you know, I homeschool my two boys, and I'm always looking for kind of entrepreneurial opportunities for them. And I thought, hey, we could buy them a vending machine. You can buy a used one for a couple $100s. You see them on Facebook Marketplace. Find a place where they can put them, and then let that be their own, like each could have their own little vending machine they're responsible for, and they pick what they sell and they pick the pricing. And, you know, it would be like just one big kind of consumer math class where they have to figure out what sells and at how much, and you know, keep things stocked and all that stuff. So I'm really excited about this. And I tell my husband about it, and he's like, yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea. But then, of course, life happens and time goes by. And then the next 4th of July, which was 2024, I was talking to her about the exact same thing. You know, like, I remember that conversation from last year and how I thought that was so great. I come back to my husband, same thing. God, we really got to talk about that vending machine thing again. And yeah, you're right, we do. Of course, nothing happens. And then in probably the end of February of this year, my husband calls me out of the blue one day and he goes, I got good news for you. Good news for you. And I'm like, well, what's your good news? And it's kind of a joke in our family that often his good news and my good news are not the same. Like, I'm thinking, you know, like, you just got a giant bonus and we're going to Disney World, or we're going to France or whatever. And he's like, I got us a reservation for dinner, you know?
Yeah. Like, and you're like, awesome. The
scale of our good news is so different. But anyway, so he's like, I got good news for you. And I said, what? And he's like, I think I found a business to buy for the boys. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? I wanted a $300 vending machine. I'm not talking a business. What are you talking about? And he says he's an insurance agent. And he said one of his clients had a fudge shop, 2 fudge shops, in fact, that they were looking to sell so that they could retire and move away. And my husband was like, well, I think I'll buy it. And
a fudge shop? What do I know
about
fudge?
So he did. So he bought 2 fudge shops, and he has a wife who can't make toast. You know what I mean? So I promise you, I am not doing any fudge making. Neither is he. But fortunately, he has a great staff that came with the businesses and with the little shops. And so it has been so much fun. And in fact, it's not vending machines, but my boys have really, really loved. Like, I have one son who loves to do the stocking, and he keeps the coolers full of drinks when he's there. And then another son who loves to slice the fudge and sell. He's a selling machine. He loves to scoop ice cream. So it's been really fun to see see them kind of take some ownership and each of them kind of excel in their own little entrepreneurial way. So that has been a big surprise and a lot of fun. But it did not require us moving,
Yeah.
8 hours south. So like your big news did.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit easier pill to swallow, but it's been a lot of fun. And it's in Bryson City. There's two shops. One's in Bryson City, North Carolina. One's in Cherokee, North Carolina. So we see a lot of folks from Atlanta and North Georgia who come out this way, and some friends who didn't know that Jeremy had bought the shop and just happened into the shop. That's happened a couple of times, which is always fun. So it's been a really cool thing. It's been a lot of fun.
That's fun.
Yeah, it is
When
fun.
I saw that, because it's like, life happens and everything, and that was happening right as I was moving. So I didn't really have the time to register, and text you and be like, you bought a fudge shop? What? Like,
I told you.
But I remember we were driving down and I was like, Kristin, they bought I don't know, like a candy shop or something.
Yep.
And Caroline was like, they what?
Yeah, this was exactly my same reaction when Jeremy called and said, hey, I got this, we're going to buy a fudge shop. What? Okay, babe, whatever.
Whatever you want to do.
Whatever. But I will tell you, when he told me that, my first response was, you do what you need to do, whatever. However, I want you to know, don't count on, this is your baby. I don't want you calling me and being like, can you go we need you to work a shift or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I will tell you this. We came home from vacation early because we wanted to be at that shop. Okay. We wanted to, we were in Missouri in the middle of the summer, and we were all like, you know what? I think we're kind of done here. We had a great trip, but we were like, there's nothing else we need to see or do. Why don't we go home so we can work tomorrow? And so we did. So it has been a great family project. So I'm very, very grateful for that surprise, which was really surprising. No doubt about it.
Do you run around and sing sugar, butter, flour?
I do not, although I should. It's more the Candyman can. I'm always Jeremy, Willy Wonka. My husband is now Willy Wonka. I'll be like, ask the chocolate man over there what he can do. It's so funny. I always think of the Candyman can. So, yes. Yeah. But sugar, butter, flour, that would be an even better one. So anyway, that's the news. That's the update from here. It's big.
Major things
for all involved. Major things. So anyway, and without further ado, I guess we should get to the task at hand. Surprise, surprise. We've talked for 21 minutes about everything but that. Yeah. So let's talk about And Juliet, shall we?
It's the first episode of the season. We're allowed to do a little bit of chatting. So.
I totally agree. I'm all for the chatting. So let's talk specifically about And Juliet. Now, this premiered on Broadway in 2022. We'll talk about the timing of that coming up a little bit later. And Tracey has some good insights into the timing of that and when it premiered. But first, I want to step back and talk about jukebox in general. Jukebox musicals in general. And anybody listening to this podcast likely knows what I mean when I use that term. But just in case, when I say jukebox musical, what I'm talking about is a show that uses a known catalog of music that was produced for other things than that particular show. So, a great example would be MJ, the musical, which is, I love that show, but it takes the catalog of Michael Jackson's music and uses it to tell about this little window of time in his life when he was in rehearsals for a concert tour in, I believe, 92 or maybe 93. And so, it uses his catalog to tell that story. So what that means is there's no original music, or
there's one original song.
That's right. They maybe sneak one original in there, but it's not all original music. And it's just it's music that we know. And there's a number of reasons why that's so powerful. One of them being economic. We're spending more and more money to produce musicals, and we're spending more and more money to go see a musical. And so it helps us if we know we like what we're going to see, right? If we're investing that much in it. And so that is kind of, what is happening behind the scenes. It's all in the timing. Jukebox musicals have been around throughout Broadway history. In fact, in my book, Jukebox Musicals, the first chapter is Crazy for You, not because that was the first one, but because it predated Mamma Mia. And I think there is this misnomer that Mamma Mia was the first one because it was such a big, massive success, but they were happening before that. I picked Crazy for You from 1992 because I love that show, but secondly, because in my very first musical theater history class, my only musical theater history class in graduate school, my project was to write a paper deep diving into the history of a musical, and I did Crazy for You. So it was very sentimental for me to start there, but certainly that's not the first. I just wanted a musical before Mamma Mia to show this was happening before Mamma Mia, right?
Yeah.
And
it's
then
happening in the teens and the 20s.
yes,
Quite
exactly.
a bit,
Yes.
so it's not, it isn't, you're right, it's not a new form. It's just something
Right.
that has re-emerged because, again, I think you're very right. The economics
Yes.
of the United States are syncing up again. You hear me say history is cyclical over and over and
Yep.
over again. When those
Absolutely.
economics do something, and start driving prices up, and we're a little squeezed, and we need audiences. This is when these things start to emerge.
Right. And to kind of emphasize that point, not only are jukebox musicals dominant on Broadway, but the two other things that are dominant on Broadway are movies that are, or I'm sorry, films that are turned into musicals. The Outsiders is a great example of that most recently, but it happens all the time. Beetlejuice, on and on. I mean, there's just so many of them. And also revivals. That's why revivals are so popular. One of the reasons why they're so popular, because if we're going to spend that much money to see a show, we're willing to take a risk on what we know, right? It's less risky. And we're putting up, what's the average ticket price now? $130 or more?
Yeah. I mean, it seems
So
like the economics of Broadway, of like Broadway ticket audiences, is that they'll wait until Kristen and I go see the brand new one, and we're like, yes, you have to go see it. It's amazing. Yeah. But, we're going to go see it whether everybody likes it or we like it or,
right.
or not,
right.
whether we're still going to see it because that's part of kind of what we do. But, if you're not somebody that goes to Broadway musicals a whole lot, you need that touch point, and I think that
yes.
touch point is important for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens, I just wanted to be sure that we knew that jukebox musicals have happened throughout Broadway history, but truly, though Mamma Mia was not the first, Mamma Mia was the one that became a billion-dollar property, right? It was immediately successful, and all of a sudden, anybody who had a giant catalog of songs was like, hold up, ABBA just made $1 billion. I've written a whole lot of songs. Can I make $1 billion? Right. And what's interesting, and a conversation for another day, is that there are catalogs of music that you would think could make $1 billion that closed, 100 performances in. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to say hundreds, because I think there actually are.
Oh,
like there's
without doubt.
Lots
yes.
of these jukebox musicals that just didn't work for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So
yeah. One of the most startling to me that I thought, golly, this is positioned to run forever, was the Jimmy Buffett Escape to Margaritaville.
I know. You
would think with that catalog, the man's greatest hits album is called Songs We Know by Heart, and daggone it, we do know those songs by heart. So how did that one, I think it closed after like 130 performances, something unbelievable like that.
I had a friend who wrote an entire article on just what they thought happened, because everybody thought that one was going to run forever.
For sure.
But
for sure.
Because of how Broadway works, it starts on Broadway and then goes out on tour.
Yeah.
If that had started in Orlando or Tampa or Miami or something like that, or, somewhere in the South, and just toured the South and built that, it would have maybe been a little bit different, but it starts on Broadway, and they're just the folks that are diehard Jimmy Buffett fans were not in New York when it opened.
Right. All right. That's a great point that you bring up about it touring. If it had toured first, it might have been a completely different outcome, because Mamma Mia did exactly that. So it premiered in the West End in 1999, I believe. And then it came not to New York next, it came to Toronto next. And it had sat down there for a couple of months, and then it toured the US. and it toured to build momentum to get it to Broadway. And then by the time it got there, there was this fever pitch excitement because people all across the country had seen it, and there was so much, oh, the show is unbelievable, the show is unbelievable. And there was a reason for that. ABBA had been, the number one super pop group the world over, except in the US. They never were a huge hit in the US. And so the creators, the songwriters, Benny and Bjorn of ABBA, the two Bs, were very nervous that, they'd again be a bust in the US. And so they intentionally wanted to avoid what, kind of a giant flop that they had in the US with Chess, which they attributed to we're not known in the US, right? And it makes a lot of sense. So you're absolutely right that it can make all the difference in the world if it tours first.
Yeah, and the whole reason you make a jukebox musical is because you already have that audience base. But if you don't start in a place, if you don't spend the money at the beginning in a place where those particular fans are, you can get burned very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many instances of that,
jukebox musicals with Johnny Cash and Beach Boys, and so many of these that you think, man,
Beach Boys.
I know.
I grew up in California. We love the Beach Boys. Why did that not work? Oh, because
how does that not work? It makes a difference. It really does make a huge difference. So, and as we'll talk about in a moment, the timing, it's all in the timing too. I mean, that's a big component of it as well. But when you're thinking about people with massive catalogs of music, you do think about ABBA, and you think about MJ, Michael Jackson, you think about, Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine with On Your Feet, and Carole King with Beautiful. You think about all those. But there is perhaps a name on that list that many of us are unfamiliar with, that I certainly was unfamiliar with, though I certainly knew his song. So it would be absolutely impossible to have a catalog like that of a man named Max Martin and not think, as everybody else is cashing in on their catalogs, not think, well, wait a minute, maybe I'll cash in on this one. This man, because if you're like me, you've never heard of him before. Nope. This man wrote songs like Since You've Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson, Roar by Katy Perry, Can't Stop the Feeling by Justin Timberlake, That's the Way It Is by Celine Dion, Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. He worked with
Gonna Be Me.
Yes, it's gonna be May.
Excuse me, it's gonna be May.
That's right. He worked with Bon Jovi and NSYNC, as we just mentioned, and Pink. He worked with The Weeknd. He has 25 number one hits on the Billboard Hot 100 as a writer or co-writer. So he wrote or co-wrote all of those songs.
Yeah, we've never heard his name.
Never heard of him.
He is like the upper echelon here, the most, awarded songwriter everywhere. The playbill itself includes a note that says that Max Martin has more number one hits than any other artist this century. And it boldly claims, quote, he's basically the Shakespeare of pop music.
Yeah, and who could argue with that? Because let me tell you, the only people in front of him in terms of more hits on the Billboard Hot 100 are Paul McCartney, who had 32, and John frigging Lennon, who had 26. Paul McCartney and John frigging Lennon, the only people who have written more number one hits.
Yeah. And
what?
We had to look this up because when I started doing the research for this one, I was listening to it and I'm like, so wait a minute. They just pulled all of their favorite songs from all these different artists. And I was having a little bit of, I was being a little catty about it. I was like, oh, we don't have to do it around an artist here. We just can pick whatever we want.
Yeah.
Oops. Like
whatever
major
we listen
oops
to.
on my head.
Can you even believe that?
No, I had no idea.
Same. So if you are like me and you are completely unaware of who Max Martin is, let me fill you in a little bit on who he is, because I have just learned all of this myself, and it's fascinating. He grew up in Sweden in a suburb of Stockholm. He played the piano and the French horn, which is so random to me, and he even now laughs about it. He's like, I thought it looked cool. So
okay, the French horn is cool, y'all. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, Max Martin is right there with you. Now, here's another thing about Max Martin that I love. He had an older brother, and his brother would bring home these heavy metal cassettes, so like Motley Crue and Kiss and all those guys. And he loved listening to those heavy metal bands, but he also had a dirty little secret. And his dirty little secret, Tracy, was that he loved pop music. In fact, the Bangles' Eternal Flame is one of his all-time favorite songs.
I love it.
And I'm like, same, Max, same. I love that song. I love that song. But at any rate, he has this dirty little secret where he loves pop music and he cannot tell anyone, of course, because it would lose all of the street cred. You know what I mean? So when he's in high school, he starts a band called It's Alive. And this band is pretty good. In fact, it's good enough that he quit school to focus on music. And because the band had gotten a radio contract, they'd signed with a label in Sweden, and that label had its own studio. And so they were constantly in there kind of working on their sound and working out songs and things like this. So he would work with It's Alive, and then he would sneak out to work with the producer of the label, who was a Swedish DJ named Dennis Pop. Now, Dennis Pop's another guy, and I probably am saying it wrong. It may be Dennis Pope or Dennis, I don't know, but it makes sense that it would be a DJ named Pop, right? Especially when you hear this. He produced Ace of Base's internationally successful 1993 album, The Sign.
I love that song.
I love that album. I will never forget the day that one of my best friends in high school, he like picks me up after school and he's like, I just heard this song called All That She Wants Is Another Baby.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that album had All That She Wants Is Another Baby, which is trending right now on TikTok, by the way. So that one has not yet gone away. I saw The Sign and it opened up my mind, and I am happy now living without you. I love that song. And then Don't Turn Around.
That's all on that same album?
Yes.
Holy moly.
Unbelievable. Like,
I'm telling
I remember
you, all good pop music, for some reason, it's inexplicable why. It all comes out of Sweden.
ABBA would second that. They would second that.
Isn't that so crazy?
It is crazy. Crazy. But anyway, this guy had produced Ace of Base's massively popular album. And if you are the same age that Tracy and I are, then you will certainly remember that very, very well. So It's Alive ended up, of course, falling apart. But Dennis Pop, the Swedish DJ who had produced Ace of Base album, saw something really special in Max Martin. And so he kind of became a mentor to him. And like Max, who had the dirty little secret of loving pop music, DJ Dennis Pop, like his name, had a real affection for pop music too. And so they started working together. They co-produced the follow-up to the Ace of Base album, the one that came out after that. They co-produced that and were really working together. In fact, early in 1995, the two of them saw a video of five guys singing at SeaWorld. These guys had an album. It was a real big flop. But nevertheless, they were dancing, just shaking their moneymakers all over SeaWorld with, I guess, opening for Shamu or something.
Yes,
Who knows? But nevertheless, they were just not going anywhere. Their album was flopping. And so Max Martin wrote a song for them. And in 1997, it hit number 3 in the US, and it was called Quit Playing Games with My Heart. And those boys on stage at SeaWorld were the Backstreet Boys. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then, of course, it was just kind of off to the races. Then, we've already talked about the artists that he's worked with, and that's just a small list of people that he's worked with. But I love hearing the way that he was known for writing. He was known for writing what his artists wanted to sing. So he would find out what they were listening to, like what's on your headphones, what is in your Walkman, is what it would have been back then. Yeah. He would go to their shows. He would really get to know them, and then he would keep, at the time, a little dictaphone, which, for those who don't know, before you had a voice notes app, you had to carry around this little tape recorder, and it would record you, telling it your darkest secrets or your biggest inspirations, whatever you wanted to do. And he would make a note, and he said about 1 in 300 of his ideas came to fruition. But nevertheless, that's how he did it. And I think that's an amazing process to work so personally with those artists. And that's probably why he had so much success, because it was reading as authentic from that performer, right?
Yeah.
It sounded like something they would sing. And then here, in an age before American Idol had swept the nation, Simon Cowell, whom we all will know as the curmudgeon judge once upon a time on American Idol. And what's he on now? America's Got Talent? Is he on something else now? I don't know.
Sure.
Wherever he is, God bless him. But initially, he was a record executive at BMG Entertainment.
Yeah.
And he said of Max Martin, if you've got Max Martin as your writer, you have a better chance of having a worldwide hit than with anyone else.
Yeah. And when you know his list, there is a through line in there. Like you can, it's not like they're so disparate,
right?
By artists that you can't feel his hands all over it. But until somebody brings it to your attention, because they're so wide and spread out, there's no way you would even know. But now that I'm like looking, I'm like, oh, now I know what a Max Martin tune sounds like.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, and interestingly, and not surprisingly, like I said, you know, as everybody sees the success of Mamma Mia and it becomes a billion-dollar property, and they begin to assess, what can I do with my own catalog of music? Max Martin, I mean, the man's written more number one hits than anybody except for John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Of course, he's going to start assessing his options, right? And so that's what he does. He and his wife are kind of, his wife's name is Jenny Peterson, and they were talking about, you know, the possibility of maybe I have a Mamma Mia in me. Interestingly, the only musical he had ever seen before and Juliet was Mamma Mia. That was so he certainly wasn't a musical theater guy.
No.
But, you know, Mamma Mia had the Sweden connection with ABBA, and everybody saw Mamma Mia, you know, so it inspired him to keep going. Not long after that, a producer came to him and said, "Hey, Max, guess what, brother?" Guess what, my man? And so, you know, around 2009, they began to to work on what would eventually become And Juliet. And when they did it, when Max Martin agreed to it, he had a couple of stipulations. There were two off-limits storylines. He said, absolutely no boy bands, right? We're not doing the Backstreet Boys at SeaWorld. Unfortunately.
Okay.
And no little girls from tiny towns who go on to become a pop star. So no 42nd Street. We're not doing that either.
Well, it's like stay away from the
cliches.
Well, and they're cliche because that's part of the history of the artists themselves.
Yes, right.
So it's like because otherwise you kind of hone in on one artist rather than the other.
Right.
It's
absolutely.
a very, very smart. It was a smart stipulation to make. So
right. And of course they couldn't do a bio musical because nobody's heard of Max Martin, so nobody's going to come see Max Martin
the musical, and people would be like, huh,
Max Martin, who is that?
Okay, now I might go see that, but
right.
I mean,
not then. You wouldn't have. So, you know, obviously I should have mentioned this earlier, but jukebox musicals they all fall into one of two categories. You either go the Mamma Mia route, where you have this just completely fictional story, made up, fantastical story, or you go the Jersey Boys route, which was the bio musical. And we see both of those repeated over and over and over. And another stipulation that Martin made, for reasons we've just kind of alluded to, was that nobody knows who I am. I have intentionally, for all of his career, he stayed out of the limelight. He wanted nothing to do with publicity. In fact, in 2019, when this started, you know, it premiered in Manchester, England in 2019, he gave an interview, but it was the only other interview he'd ever given was in 2001 to Time magazine. So he had intentionally been, you know, away from the limelight. And so, you know, it was obvious that this could not be a bio musical. He didn't want that at all. And you're right. Which art is it? The Britney Spears bio musical or the NSYNC bio? Which one are you going to pick?
Yeah.
So the catalog was too broad to pigeonhole it into the bio musical. So of course they had to come up with an idea for that fantastical story, knowing they wanted it to be fictional. Yeah. They had to come up with a fantastical story, and they came to the writer who ended up being the librettist, a Canadian writer named David West Reed. Now, that name is likely familiar to people now as the writer of Schitt's Creek, but Schitt's Creek didn't hit until 2015, and this was 2009, 10-ish, right? So he was not, the Emmy Award-winning writer of Schitt's Creek yet. And his agent came to him one day and said, "Hey, would you like to pitch a musical for Max Martin?" And Reed did exactly what we did and said, "I'm sorry, who?
What?
Max what?"
Who's that?
Right? Like, what? Okay. And so he did what we did, and he Googled Max Martin, and immediately was like, "Oh my gosh." Well, as fate would have it, he had just concussed himself. He had hit his head on a kitchen cabinet. I know, right? This is David West Reed I'm talking about. He had gotten a concussion. He'd hit his head on a kitchen cabinet. And so he was unable to, look at a screen or anything like that. And so he made a playlist, or was given a playlist of Max Martin songs, about 250 of them, in fact. And he just laid in his bed and listened to that playlist over and over and over. And what he said he realized was that the themes of young love and heartbreak kept, recurring, which is what aren't all songs pretty much about that, right? And then he began to think, now what is...
But not in a way that brings you down.
Right.
Like,
right.
Young love and heartbreak. But even the heartbreak songs, like... this is
they
a person who's working through. I'm working through this, but I'm not gonna let it kill me. Kind of thing.
Since you've been gone, I can't breathe for the first time. But I'm still moving on. Yeah. I told you. I know all of his songs.
I know, but I just find that so amazing because when you say heartbreak, that can kill.
For sure.
It can kill a song. It can kill a show. We all know that. There's something about his songs that it's like it keeps us. It makes us think that at the end of the song they're gonna be just fine.
And which made it so perfect for the story that it ultimately ended up telling. And in fact, that's how Reed came to it, was this heartbreak and young love is recurring. And then he thought, well, now where have I seen heartbreak and young love before? And he thought about perhaps the most famous of all heartbroken young lovers in Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah, which is absolutely amazing. And of course,
knowing that he did this in like 2009, 2010 when they started doing this.
Yes.
One of the first things that I said to Kristin when we started looking at this particular show was, it feels like something's rotten.
Yeah,
which is another Shakespeare musical,
yes,
and I was like, I'm having reminiscences. It's like the Jukebox, Something's Rotten, and they're so different. It can feel like that just looking at the timeline of Broadway, but this is not. That was my initial reaction, and it's not in any way, shape, or form. It just happened to, these ideas for these musicals sprang up completely different at completely different times.
Absolutely.
But I have heard somebody say, and it's like, oh, they just made the Jukebox, Something's Rotten on me. And it's like, no, it didn't happen that fast. This is a well-cultivated process that they went on. So
Absolutely. And so that's what they decide to do. The idea becomes, okay, let's look at Romeo and Juliet, because we have these thematically that matches with the story. And the songs that Martin provided. And then to your point, he was like, well, if she's singing these songs, Juliet isn't really a blushing daisy, right? Yeah. So what if we said Juliet doesn't die? What if Juliet didn't die? Mm-hmm. And what if she finds out that Romeo was not the guy she thought he was? Mm-hmm. And that Romeo's been out sowing his wild oats at the same time he was telling Juliet, wherefore art thou? You're the love of my life.
We know that from the play. She just doesn't know that.
Right, exactly.
Rosalind,
Yes. And so then what if Juliet decides, okay, Romeo lived his life, and now I'm going to go live mine. So in other words, that Kelly Clarkson song, Since You've Been Gone, I'm so moving on. Well, that's Juliet in this show. And so that's what the story became. And Reed, of course, wrote the script, and Luke Shepard was brought in to direct. Like I said, it of course, went through every sort of workshop iteration that musicals like this typically do, and then premiered in Manchester, England in 2019 and transferred very quickly to the West End, where it was not warmly received. Tracy, you want to talk about that?
I mean, not warmly received. The thing is about this particular musical, it's like when you look at critics do something very, very different. Like they're looking at structure, they're looking at this. One of the criticisms of this musical is just that it doesn't really have any conflict, especially in the second act. It just continues to
just
go.
A concert.
But the thing is that most people at that point are like out of their seats excited.
Exactly.
And so most audiences didn't care. So the critical feedback is very, very different than what you're getting from audiences. So it's not the same thing happened on Broadway too. The critical reaction, if we look at it from a structural point of view, I mean, I think what's his name? Not the Schitt's Creek guy. What's his name again?
Max Martin?
For not Max Martin, but the Schitt's Creek guy.
Oh, David West Reed.
David West Reed. I was like, that's the three named guy here.
Yes,
it's in my notes. So David West Reed, like, he doesn't do situational comedy where there's like bang, 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 bang. He lets things develop through relationship. Yeah. And like, that's like, it feels like some of the hallmark of what he does. And that doesn't really work in a musical.
We don't have time for that.
We have to have, we have to have that crisis and that climax moment and the denouement. We've got to get that going. And so a lot of critics do point that out. And then at the very end of every single review, it's like, but everybody was on their feet and having a wonderful time, so it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
What I think. It's a great night at the theater, and the cast tends to... I saw an interview with some cast members, and the cast member that... the long-standing cast member, whose name is escaping me right now, but she played the nurse in Manchester and then reprised on Broadway. She just kept saying, look, we've been through it, referring to COVID, and she's like, sometimes it's okay to have a little joy.
Yeah.
And that's what she wanted people to take from it. It was like, look, this is fun. There is stuff to it's not just all fluff. Like, no one is saying that, but it's like, is it perfectly structured? No, there are some things in there that make you go, huh?
Yeah.
But it's fun. And it's meant to be fun because you can sing along to every single one, every single song. And that's the point. There is an entertaining aspect to it. And there's really nothing wrong with that. So it just depends on, it's hard when those things kind of happen where the critical response is not the audience response. But that is exactly what happened with
Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia as well. I mean, I will say I was one of the ones that I was like, I'm not going to go see that. It's trash.
Yeah, right?
It's so much fun. Okay?
Oh my gosh. I defy anyone to stay in their seat at the end of that show.
I have one complaint about Mamma Mia.
And what is it?
Everybody in the audience starts singing along, and they're about a half beat behind the conductor. And I look down in the pit at that poor guy trying to keep everybody together and just being like, oh, okay. Yes. And I mean, at that point, I'm like, let's just celebrate like the fact that we are just keeping this together. Right. It's like, whatever. Like, I have nothing to complain about. I'm having a good time.
What I remember from the first time seeing Mamma Mia, and this is very similar, in the way that it's structured, you don't know what songs are coming. They intentionally leave the order of the songs out of the playbill. The songs are listed, but not in the order that they appear. Mm-hmm. So you don't know what song's coming. And then, there's moments in the show where this song, and it's like everybody laughs because they're like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect song for this moment. Yeah. We all know the song. And I mean, and this catalog is just as well known and would have the same impact, I would imagine. And then, there is so much to be said for the joy. And Tracy, I want to, excuse me, I want to talk about the timing of the premieres. And you had some thoughts about, COVID. It premiered in England prior to COVID. And then in New York post COVID, and I would be curious to hear what your thoughts are there.
I mean, I thought that was interesting. Immediately you start pulling dates and everything,
Yeah.
and the way my brain works, because I'm a pattern girl, is I'm looking at things and pulling, you know, American history and British history and trying
Yeah.
to lay it on top. Yeah, that's just what I do. And I'm looking at it, and it was so specifically written and premiered before COVID. And
Months before. I mean, right
like
before.
right as it happened, you know, I think it did pick back up in the West End, but you know, that was its first kind of taste. That's when everybody got their introduction to it.
Yeah.
And I felt like some of the critical response in Manchester and the early stuff in the West End was just like, this is silly.
Yeah.
Very silly.
Fluff.
And it's like,
we're above this.
We're above this, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, then we go into lockdown, right? For you know, a year, 2 years, depending on kind of where you were. And then it comes back. It somehow survives that. And it survives it because the only way we survived COVID was by, I mean, let's just be honest, we were all consuming art.
Yeah.
That's what we did because we couldn't go outside. It wasn't like we could do anything. So there was a lot of artistic consumption going on during that time.
And a lot of it was silly. Think about all those TikTok dances. And, you know, that's where we get the like.
It was like,
trending...
I need something to take my mind off the fact that this is. And you know what? I think that I'm going to be interested to see what scholars say about this time period, but watching an entire generation go from that's silly and not worth my time to, you know what, maybe I need a little silly in my life. And you know, I think it's really fun.
Yeah.
You know,
and
moving from silly to fun, those are two completely different connotations and words, right?
Right.
You know, me looking at something and going, well, this is silly. This is, you know, I can still sit through it. It's fine, but it's silly. And the difference between like, that was fun.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be anything but fun. I don't need it to give me something. It is something where I think we're starting to see that we've learned the art of just being able to sit and have fun and not have to have it be attached to some sort of other commercial project. Does that make sense? We had to learn how to do that because there was nothing to do. So that's what my brain is doing.
As you're talking about it, my brain is going, didn't we talk about this exact same thing after Showboat?
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's just, the cycles, as you bring up all the time, everything is cyclical. And we get this very serious musical drama in Showboat in 1927. And then in 1929, the stock market crashes. And, you know, we don't want to be very serious in our drama anymore, right? We want to see Cole Porter's Anything Goes or another rendition of Ziegfeld Follies.
Well, human beings do not change throughout time. We don't. We would love to believe that we change and get better and everything. We don't. We make the same bad mistakes all the time. But one of the things that I know from just watching musical theater history is when there's some sort of collective trauma, human beings are not very good at processing the trauma quickly and letting it go and then moving on and just saying, okay, I'm going to process my trauma. Now I'm going to go back to being the serious person with the serious output after that. And we need time and we need that kind of, we need things that soothe. We need the balm, as it were. And this is the kind of stuff that humans go to. And there's nothing wrong with that. We should celebrate it for what it is.
Well, and, you know, I think, again, to bring back Mamma Mia into the conversation, I think there's so many overlaps between the two, just in terms of fun, you know? Like, and not to mention Swedish songwriters.
Well, and when did it come out?
2001, exactly.
And it opens on Broadway.
October of 2001, and in fact, they were rehearsing at the Winter Garden Theater September 11th, and you know, in the aftermath. they met together as a company. They were scheduled to open in October. I think it might have been September. They might have pushed it back a few weeks, but not many. And the director, Philida Lloyd, and producer Judy Kramer, they're talking to the company about, what are your thoughts? What should we do? And there were members of the cast who said, it's completely inappropriate for us to do a show like this right now. This is completely unserious. It is inappropriate. But there were other members of the company, and ultimately they won out, who said, no, 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 no. This is exactly what we should be doing. This is what we are made to do. We are made to help people heal through art. And that's what this show will do. And of course, it certainly did. But I see that there's a lot of overlap between those two time periods.
It's also the nostalgia. Like, in these two particular cases, it's not just, this is, it's fun on the surface, just taken in its own way. But it's got nostalgia for each and every one of those songs.
That's right.
And it takes you back to simpler times. I mean, how many times have you broken into song during this episode when you're thinking about, driving in your car, getting picked up from high school, like that's what it's doing, and that's what it's meant to do. And it does have kind of a healing effect on us collectively.
Because it's safe, right? There's a safety in the nostalgia of it. And I think it's interesting too that, as we look back, I know we've alluded to, when you look at plays of war, which I did a project on, and we can't talk about war immediately after it happens. It tends to be like 20 to 30 years after.
Yep.
And in both cases of Mamma Mia and Juliet, so many of these songs are 15, 20, 25 years for ABBA in the rearview mirror. And it's suddenly coming back up again. So there's something about just, a decade or 2 decades removed that is so, there's something powerful about that.
Yeah. Nostalgia is a powerful thing, and it's good for musicals.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, Tracey, what else you got to say about this one? Anything?
Nope, I'm good. I think we should end on that note.
You think we should end on that note? Well, in that case, if Tracey says so, that'll do it for this episode of the Dr. Broadway podcast. Tune in next time when we'll be talking about another Jukebox musical. Of course, A Beautiful Noise, the Neil Diamond musical, which also premiered on Broadway in 2022. Until then, connect with us via email at hello@drbroadway.com. Send us a title for this series if you want to win a copy of Jukebox musicals, and you can email us at hello@drbroadway.com or on Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok at Dr. B-Way Podcast.